To Gonk
Wait,
Droid
wait, whoa,
Army.
whoa, 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 wait, hold on.
I was just going to go right into it, but
All right, all right, all right. Go ahead.
welcome to Gonk Droid Army, where we talk about everything Star Wars. Mostly like everything Star Wars. We may get into other space sci-fi related things down the road, just because, but it will pretty much be Star Wars.
It's very cool if you like everything in Star Wars.
I do like everything in Star Wars.
I hate the Jedi. I don't care about it. All that stuff, no. I want to get something cooler. Like,
That's why
just,
you're an Andor fan. You're one of the Andor fan bros. Where
that's
they're
what I'll
like,
get.
here's a show without Jedi, and that's why it's good. And it's
No,
like,
that's not why I liked it. It was because it was good.
why don't you have a Star Trek show without Starfleet? See how good that is.
That probably would suck.
You need the Jedi. That's the whole point.
And they're too religious, though.
Well, I think
But
that old dude in Andor with the walking stick is going to end up being a Jedi, and that stick's going to be a lightsaber.
I'll have to rewatch it because it's been a while.
He's the main dude that sets up the heist
Yeah.
and contacts Cassian, and who is
Does Donnie Yen's character from Rogue One ever become a Jedi, or is he just a blind guy with a stick?
No, he's a guardian of the Wills. I think I'm pronouncing it right. People on the internet, if I pronounce something wrong, just let me know. Some of this I get from
Put it in the
reading.
comments.
I get from reading or comics, so I haven't actually heard it, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it. Like Ro, is it Ro or is it Aro? Is it Marchian Ro? Is it Markian Ro? Is it Marchian Aro? See, you don't even know who I'm talking about because you haven't read the High Republic.
Aren't they part
It's
of the
okay.
people that don't like the Force or don't like the Jedi like me or something?
Yeah, I don't want to spoiler alert, and I am reading the first book of Phase 2 of the High Republic, The Path of Deceit, and it's set prior to the first phase of the High Republic, and it's about uh, the path of the open hand, which is like they're a bunch of hippies. They're like a cult of hippies that believe in the Force and think that the Force should be free. So they hate Jedi because they see Jedi as twisting the Force and defiling it and
Manipulating it, yeah.
yeah. And they're like, oh, those fucking communists. And
Sounds like a gray Jedi, kind of
well,
like
they're
a
like,
blue juice sucking Luke.
they don't even use the Force, but they track Force artifacts, artifacts that have the Force imbued in it or that are connected to the Force, which there's a lot of. There's a lot of. Insidious
Isn't
was
it every
really
living thing?
well, no, there's like actual physical artifacts. Insidious was like a collector of them. He was trying to find what he could. This path of the open hand was formed by a member of the Guardian of the Wheels who left that and then formed this like cult. And they try
The
to
closed
pass.
fist.
Well, they form a subgroup forms called Path of the Closed Fist, I think is actually what it's called. So it's there's like all these little different groups, but they don't like the Jedi. And they lead to the Markian or Marchian Ro or Aro, who becomes the leader of the Nihil, which becomes this marauding band of like pirates that fuck up the High Republic and bring the Jedi back down because the Jedi had no real enemy during the High Republic, and that's why people don't get this about the Acolyte. They're not the same Jedi from the Phantom Menace. They're a bunch of like monks, like actual like monks, and they live in peaceful times. The biggest threat they had to fight was the Nihil and the Dringer, the sentient plants.
Oh, I remember
Like it
talking about them.
fucked them up because their whole thing when they were fighting the Nihil, they were like, okay, don't kill them, just use enough force to disable them. And that was their thing. Like they felt bad cutting a hand off or something. And it over time it progresses because they keep getting fucked up because the Nihil are like, here's poison gas, here's a bunch of bomb, here's we're gonna plant the fucking Dringer plant here. And they were doing all this shit to fuck up the Jedi and the Republic. So then the Jedi on the Outer Rim, who have been dealing with this for a lot longer, they're like, we need to start killing these fuckers. Like we need to do something about this. We need to
So,
stop.
are the Jedi working for the Republic, or are they just freelancing right now
They're
doing that?
really they're even more like they work with the Republic together as
Like
one.
contract killers.
No, not even, they don't kill. Like, that's their thing. They're like guardians. And they say for light and life rather than may the force be with you, it's for light and life. And
Ugh.
that's kind of a combined Republic Jedi thing. And the High Republic, the Republic is at its height. And they're like, oh, we're going to build this giant space station and it's going to be the star of our republic and it's going to help so many people. We're going to go to the outer rim and they're Democrats. That's what they are.
Hmm.
And yeah, they're naive and
And they failed.
ignorant. And they're like, we're going to help everybody. But then the Jedi who are actually out on the outer rim helping people are like, hey, we're not doing enough to help people. Plus, we kind of have to kill people. Like, there's bad people. You can't just be like, hey, don't do that and have them stop doing it. Like, you got to use force. And there's people, senators from the Outer Rim, who are like, we need a galactic republic military. We can't just rely on like little defense forces and security forces. We need an actual military. But they're viewed as like, they're the military industrial complex of Star Wars. They're just viewed by the Republic as, oh, you just want to go to war and make money and sell weapons, blah, blah, blah. So the High Republic pretty much led to the Galactic Republic that takes place during Phantom and the Clone Wars era. And it's kind of like how Palpatine was able to manipulate everything.
Is that why the Jedi got stuck doing trade negotiations? That
Well,
seems
yeah, doing all that, that's like
terrible.
what they do. But then they realize, because then the Jedi from Coruscant, from the core worlds, which is like blue cities, pretty much, where it's like not as bad as the Outer Rim, and they don't know how things work out there, and they expect it to work the same way that it does in the core worlds and the mid rim. And the Jedi and everyone else on the Outer Rim are like, hey, this is like, that's like, and all these other planets where it's like the way of the gun, pretty much. You gotta defend yourself. It's the Wild West. It's not the
Like,
city
yeah.
where everything's fine and you got a security force and whatnot. So I forgot where I was going. I'll try to get back to that. The Acolyte. That's where
That was it.
a lot of people, I think, are critical because they're expecting to see Jedi either like the old Republic, where they were militant and they wore armor and they fought and they were fighting in wars. They were like warriors, what you expect from Jedi, or they want Phantom Menace Jedi, where they're able to fight Siths. They're able to, fight droids and they're more like warriors. But during the High Republic, a lot of them weren't badass Jedi like Mace Windu or Obi-Wan. They weren't fighters. They had fighters, but a lot of them, even the fighters, were trained to, that was the absolute last resort, was to pull your lightsaber and strike somebody down. And even that was like, you can't kill them. You just got to disable them. So then by the end of the first phase of the High Republic, they're losing their shit and they're killing people like the Marshal of the Jedi, the one who was like, oh, we gotta just live with the Force and be a good Jedi, not kill people. She like loses it and almost falls to the dark side. And she's like, fuck this, I'm gonna kill all of you. And she goes nuts and like just butchers a bunch of them. And it's really cool. I liked it. I thought it was cool. But then one of the other Jedi, they're like, they force push her and they're like, oh, this isn't our way, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, you're right. And then there's
Hmm.
these, spoiler alert, their space station gets attacked and blows up and crashes into a planet. And they like lose so many Jedi. So there's like, I think
Wait,
it's like,
spoiler alert for what?
for anyone listening who hasn't read the books yet.
Book. Nobody's gonna read a book. We'll wait for the movie to come out. Yeah, I'm playing Knights of the Old Republic right now, KOTOR. And the Jedi are assholes.
Yeah, because that's the old Republic where
Well,
they had
there's
to
the
be assholes.
Mandalorian Wars. They got shit. There's Sith everywhere.
Yeah,
Like literally everywhere.
yeah. They
And
have to be assholes. But that's why I think a lot of people, one of the main reasons why people don't like The Acolyte, I know everyone goes on about like shitty writing and stuff. The writing really isn't that bad. And if you're watching Star Wars for the writing, did you just not watch the prequels or the original trilogy? Because it's not
fucking
Shakespeare.
Didn't Mark Hamill have something to say about that? Like, several times, like, how he hates a line or whatever. He's like, that doesn't even sound like a normal line a human would say.
He literally said that to George. There was some line, I can't remember what it was, but he had to tell him, like, that's not what a person would say. That's not a normal,
Yeah.
and like
And
they
he says,
changed
like,
it.
throughout the decades. Like,
Yeah.
one of those, just a response line to, like, a stormtrooper or something. He's like when he says, oh, everything's all good here.
And he cut so many lines out of the prequel trilogy that made sense and added context and emotion and
To the
story, which is what,
midichlorians.
which well to the movies, like it added so much what you want from a movie, and he cut a lot of those lines, and it's like, dude, that's why the movie kind of seems hollow. Writing isn't that bad. I think it's just because one, we live in this age where everybody wants to know what's going to happen at the end of a series before it happens, which I think is because a lot of shows for the past decade, 2 decades, a lot of shows and movies were based off of book series, very popular book series that people read. So they already knew what was going to happen. And they're like, well, I know what's going to happen, but I need to know what happens in the show. So now when a show comes out that isn't based on anything like that, it's an original show. Everyone's like, I need to know what happens at the end of the series that has like 10 to 12 episodes, but I need to know by the second episode. And it's like, that's not how
Yeah.
fucking TV shows work. So that everyone gets pissed off with the Acolyte. Having said that, if it ends the season on some cliffhanger without explaining or answering any questions, then I probably won't watch a second season. Because that fifth episode was cool with the lightsaber shit,
Yeah.
but it's like, don't do that. Don't, like, that's the reason why Mando season 3 was so irritating, because I've gone back and watched it a couple times just through because it's out now, and it's not that bad. Like when you can just watch it and not have to be like, oh, I hope this episode's good because I'm gonna have to wait a week for the, oh, it's Lizzo and Jack Black.
Yeah. A big issue also because I really like Mando. And that was because I watched it all at once. Like,
Yeah,
I fucking binged it. Like, I watched the first season as it was coming out, but the first season was fucking amazing. Second season, I waited for it. Third season, I waited for it. And then I think I've watched all 3 seasons, at once right before Book of Boba Fett came out.
right.
And yeah, all these Star Wars shows need to be watched as like a movie in a way, as a
When it comes
3-hour
out.
trilogy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wonder if they would get more like better reception if they released the series all at once, or like here's 3 episodes, then here's a few more like they do on Amazon. But
Something.
it's because I reading about the stuff to like research it, I was getting excited because I was like, shit, are they going this direction in the Acolyte? And I have a few theories on it. I was kind of thinking that, well, because I was reading about it, there's that Darth Momin, the one I was telling you about, who's in that Darth Vader graphic novel, where he was like an architect and a sculptor. He was an architect like George Costanza always wanted to be, but he was also like an artist and a sculptor. He was a Sith, and he was a really like power hungry Sith. And the Jedi eventually, he was building like super weapons and shit. He built one that could like destroy a planet, kind of like an early Death Star. And the Jedi stopped him, but his consciousness got in like viewed into this helmet that he had, and the helmet could.
Wait, isn't that the helmet that the master or the Sith Lord has, or the first Ren helmet or something?
That's like speculation, I think. I don't know if they've connected it completely, but because there's the helmet in the Acolyte, which is very similar to the helmet that Kylo, like it looks similar to
He
the one Kylo
specifically
Ren
says
has.
though that it stops him from, entering his head.
Well, that's what a possessed helmet would want you to think, because it wants you to just have its, powers and its influence. And that would explain why he was so good with the lightsaber and defeating the Jedi
Out
and
of
was so
nowhere.
powerful. And also when he says something
When he
about,
pushes all 5 or 7 of them out of the way with one push.
and he talks about being really old. And this Darth, I think it's Momin, or no, I think it's Momin, because Momin sounds like mom. Like, so I think it's Darth
Moana,
Momin.
yeah.
But that Momin said something about, I can't remember what the quote is, but he says something about like being alive through various different, like he's seen the fall of empires before. And so like he's been alive for a long time. And spoiler alert to anyone listening who hasn't read Fortress Vader, Vader kills him. And it just shows how powerful Vader is because he fucks with Vader and like kind of fucks with his head. And Vader was using him to build the fortress because he's like, oh, I can build a super fortress for you, which ends up being Vader's castle on Mustafar. And it takes him like 9 times to actually build it because it keeps fucking up and falling apart. He was possessing Mustafarians. Vader was having them possess them just to have a body. But his whole thing was to come back from the dark side, like to come back from hell, kind of, and be
Huh.
resurrected. And he tricks Vader into doing that and opening the door. And he comes back and they get in a fight, and Vader still kills him. And it's like, you died
Nice.
twice, dude. Like, you came back to life after all these centuries to be killed by Vader. And it wasn't like, it was close. It was a good fight, but it shows how powerful Vader is. Sidious goes on to hang on to the helmet after that and has it on like one of his hips. And there's another comic series that I haven't read, but from what I looked up online, the leader of the Crimson Dawn, which is in Solo, has the Knights of Ren raid Vader's castle to get some Force artifact that Darth Momin created. And they have a vision of him, like he reaches out to them in a vision. And the helmet possesses like some other people, and it's a connection, I think, between the rise of Skywalker, where it's like, how the fuck did Sidious come back? And that's the whole line. Like, somehow Sidious is back. That might explain how he came back. This helmet, like he found a way to use, however, was
Like a
enchanted with the Force.
holocrux.
Kind of, yeah. And it may also be connected to the Knights of Ren. So I think Chimere from the Acolyte is possibly going to start the Knights of Ren. My other theory, though, is that Osha will actually be the one to start the Knights of Ren, and that Chimere will be killed, possibly by Darth Tenebros or Plagueis. And I'm hoping
By
that's what happens.
himself at the end.
Right, because I'm thinking if
They're not going to
Tenebros,
show a new character.
well, if Tenebros is alive and Chimere is his Padawan or apprentice, not Padawan, but apprentice, he would be pissed off for one that he's trying to get his own apprentice because it's like, oh no, hell no, bitch. Like that's what Sith do. Once they get their own apprentice, they kill the master and then they become the master and they have an
But
apprentice.
he said he was lonely, and
See,
that's why he
that's
wanted May and Osha.
the other thing where I'm like, okay, maybe he doesn't have a master. And then there's the possibility that he is Darth Momin, and Darth Momin has possessed whoever this individual
Teamer
is.
or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, and is possessing him and jumps into Osha and maybe forms the Knights of Ren. But the whole thing with the Cortosis, and I haven't read Plagueis, but I did research. He has a Cortosis on this planet. I think it was called Ball. Let me look at that real quick. I want to get it right.
Eventually, we could talk about how the Sith stole the dark side power away from the original Sith.
Ball. See, that's Old Republic. We got to get into that too. But Ball Diminic, I think. See, I
Bald
don't know how
Diminic?
this Dimnick, Ball Dimnick. There's a planet, and
Planet.
a lot of people think this planet is where Chimere is, and that like ocean planet with the islands, and that's where the Cortosis mine is, and that's in Plagueis. That's where Plagueis kills Tenebros is in that mine.
Wait a minute. What planet are they on now?
That like jungle planet.
Yeah.
I can't remember. It's just like some planet, I guess.
Okay. Wait,
Yeah,
so it's not the planet that he was selling stuff on and slinging his wares with May?
I think it is, but it's not
Oh.
the one where they go when he's like. Did you watch the last episode?
Yeah, it was that was a different planet. I know that. But
Yeah,
I was just wondering where they fought the jungle, the
but
night and
that
day episodes.
the planet where he's at then fits the description of the planet where Tenebros had a mine of Cortosis where Plagueis killed him. So it's like it's how are they going to have these connections and then not have it connect? So I'm thinking they're going to bring in one of those characters. Plus, in episode 3, and I noticed this, I forgot about it, but I saw a post on Instagram like a week ago that brought it up. In episode 3, when it's showing the flashback and it's showing the like Witch ladies and the Jedi and then meeting and trying to get Osha when she's a little kid, there's a
Hmm.
couple of hooded figures that are not witch ladies. They don't look like witch ladies. They look like some kind of alien, and they're kind of tall and obviously have big heads. And I swear to God, one of them had like reddish eyes. And it's like, is that Plagueis? Or is that like a Sith? Like, who are
What?
these
Yeah.
guys?
What is Plagueis? Because he has like a kind of like
He's a
Kai Amenity. He has like a weird. Oh, sorry. Has like a weird like stretched out horse face.
he's immune. They're a
Okay.
race of alien.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You sound less rude when you say it.
Mune.
I don't know the name.
Horseface man. No, he's immune.
Horseface man.
He's the same.
Went to Naboo. Horseface man went to Naboo. Met a little boy. Taught him the ways of the Sith. You know how it goes.
Sounds kind of creepy when you put it that way. I know, that's why it's.
He trained Sidious, kill his family, and oh, sorry, spoiler alert. You should read it. It's a great book. I
I
like James Luceno a lot. I read a lot of his books outside of Star Wars.
I do want to read it, and I know it's now considered like legends and non-canon, but I think they're taking a lot from it, and I think in a way it will
I
kind of be canon.
I was thinking about this at work the other day, and so this is what my philosophy is. Basically, what Disney is doing is they're saying, "All right, guys, here's legends. This is what you need to create the future with. Take anything you want out of there, because when you do, then it becomes, your canon material or whatever." Like, what's his face? Sam Witwer's started throwing in lines of the Sith code as Darth Maul. That
Yeah.
solidified it in canon just by saying it in the show. But I think that's what they're doing. They're just using anything that they want out of there. Like the Master, how he used where he broke the lightsabers. That's from the expanded universe.
Yeah.
Like, and there's like, oh, that's a cool idea. Let's pull that in. Like, and eventually, yeah, 30, 40 years down the road, they're gonna have a lot of shit, and they're just gonna cycle out all the duds from
Because there's
Legends.
a lot of duds in the expanded universe, the pre-Disney expanded universe. There's a
It was
lot of
everybody. It
bullshit.
was literally
Yeah.
everybody for 30 years just writing
It's
whatever
like,
they
oh, you
want.
want to make a Star Wars thing? Okay, just don't tell us where Yoda's from or what his species is. That was like the only
Pretty
rule.
much.
There
That
were
was
like
the
a
only
couple
one.
main
Yeah.
rules. Yeah.
You can't talk about the Skywalker family unless it's all good, and don't say where Yoda's from.
Yeah. And
Simple
the
as
rest
that.
is like whatever you want. Like fucking Han Solo
And
goes to
now,
Earth with Chewbacca once. Like,
now
who gives a
Disney's like,
shit?
okay, cool. Just take from all that and build whatever you want off that.
But because there
Which,
was no real canon before, it was like there's George Lucas's movies and the rest is just whatever. Just don't fuck with the main core of that. And all they're doing with Disney and all it's people like Filoni who are doing it. They're bringing it into a constructed, concise canon, and they are bringing a lot of, like you're saying, a lot of the expanded universe legends will eventually become canon
mhm.
because they've brought more of that shit into the canon than George Lucas ever did or ever would have.
Yeah. Well, like Filoni, I saw this video of him on a podcast talking about wanting to do a Vader show and start it in the Phantom Menace time as a kid, and then when he becomes Vader, going back to Tatooine, because there's this story arc where he goes back and like helps out some of his friends from random, I don't know, marauders or some shit, like childhood friends. He goes back as Vader and like saves them, even though they're kind of, whatever. Like he humanizes Vader in a way. But it's like this long story arc on Vader going back to Tatooine and fucking shit up way after Order 66 and everything. And I don't know if you want to do a show or a movie on that, but just another thing he'll have to do.
See, and I like everything he does because he actually is a fan of Star Wars, and he
Yeah.
brings into like some of the stuff in Clone Wars. He was going to have a whole Yuzan Vong arc that they just didn't have time to do, and they have a lot of stuff that was never made and a lot of stuff that he wrote but never went into production because they just didn't want to give him the money or the time. And people talk shit about him, and they're like, if George Lucas had it, it'd be so much better. And it's like, if George Lucas still had Star Wars, there wouldn't be any Star Wars. He wasn't going to make anything else. It's not like we would have this whole, TV shows and movies that George Lucas made. He wasn't going to make shit. And if
When
he
he wrote
did,
4, he planned it right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's it.
like a sequel trilogy, and if he did, it honestly probably wouldn't have been that great. And he wasn't going to make any TV shows. Like,
He probably wouldn't have come up with, like, I mean, not saying the sequel trilogy is super spectacular, but he definitely would have continued the kind of boring side of the Skywalker family. He wouldn't have brought anything else in. They
he
probably would have
did.
followed fucking Han Solo.
No, there was it was something where Darth Maul becomes the new bad guy and leader of the criminal underworld. And it was just kind of like, like it wouldn't have been bad, but a lot of people would have been like, this is just a cash grab. We don't need it. It's not going to go anywhere. And not saying that the sequel trilogy is like great, warming up to it, but mostly because of all the other stuff that they're doing to explain shit in the sequel trilogy that we had no context for. Like, there's so much in it that, like, you don't know what's going on because they never explained it. And it's like, you can't just start a movie in the middle of the fucking story and be like, oh, here's a bunch of characters and people that you should know,
Well,
but don't.
first off, sir, that is George Lucas's whole entire intention with Star Wars from the get-go. It's a Flash Gordon series that you're jumping into. What happened last week? Well, the Republic is off and da-da-da-da, and Luke Skywalker. So,
Okay, George
he
Lucas
wants
can do
that.
it, but when J.J. Abrams does it, he's just copying what George Lucas did and being like, "Here
True.
you go." And it's like he was good. His idea of having like actual sets and having actual props and actual droids and not just doing CGI, that I respected and I liked. And
That was the
honestly, the
filmmaker
Force,
in him.
yeah, and the Force Awakens was good, but there's too many like nods to the original trilogy, and it's like break away from that because the
Make your own
Mandalorian,
movie.
like the Mandalorian, rather than just basing it on Star Wars, Favreau did was he based it on like spaghetti westerns, which is what George Lucas did with Star Wars. So it's like it's Star
Yeah.
Wars, but it's still based off of something else
And
and
that's
its own
why
thing.
Andor's good too, because it's more like a detective noir. Same with
Yeah,
Rogue One. It's like they're not. Yeah, they're a Star Wars story. It's not
right.
Star Wars Skywalker's fucking family story.
And that's even honestly why I like Boba Fett, and I think why a lot of people don't like it is because it's Robert Rodriguez, and he has a certain way of doing things. Once Upon a Time, in Mexico is one of my all-time favorite movies, and they
Yeah.
are kind of cheesy and goofy, and people don't get that. And it's like it's not supposed to be super serious. And even the stupid when the guy spins around for no reason to shoot, like he does a little spin. That's a Robert Rodriguez thing that you see in all his movies, and it's kind of like. But if you haven't watched his movies and aren't a fan, then you don't really get that. And it's like I understand that,
Yeah.
but it's just like if they made a second season, and I've seen a lot of people online say this, Boba Fett leaves Tatooine and he's like, I don't want to be the dynamo thing anymore. I'm going to go be a hired gun or something. If they did that, people would be cool with it. It'd be a good show. I think if he went and fought for the resistance, and they got more into, because that's the other thing with the sequel trilogy, no one understands why there's the resistance and then there's the New Republic. They're two separate things. The resistance is the leftover remnants of the original rebellion. Republic is pretty much just the old Republic rebuilt into a new Republic, and they're even stupider and more arrogant, and they're just repeating the same problems, like the same errors. And the New Order, which is the Empire, they're kind of like the new separatists in a way. They're just off in the
Yeah.
outer rim doing shit. And they need to explain more of that. That's why the cartoon Star Wars Resistance, which is hard to get into because it's more of a kid's cartoon, even than Clone Wars. And they really go out of their way for the first season to not kill people, like even
Ugh.
stormtroopers and stuff. But then I don't know. I think it's the second season. They're like, okay, now we're going to do all the killing all at once. And there's like stormtroopers getting decapitated and crushed by giant crates and just like people dying. And it's like, okay, so it's better. But they did a lot to explain Poe Dameron and the resistance
Out
and
of nowhere, this guy, yeah.
Yeah, they explain these characters and who they are, where they come from, and what they're doing. And it's like, okay, it took a fucking cartoon, 2 seasons of a kids show to explain more about the sequel trilogy than the sequel trilogy actually could. And it all comes back to the stupid Last Jedi. I've pinpointed it. It's the problem. That's the problem movie right there, because you go from J.J. Abrams' story in The Force Awakens where they're building a new trilogy, and then it's, oh, here's this movie where we're just going to completely fuck everything up and derail the story for most of the movie to make some dumb point about the military industrial complex that everybody already knows. They make weapons for both sides. We get that. We know it. We don't need a fucking Star Wars movie to tell us that. And it takes up like almost an hour of the movie and derails it completely. Then you have The Rise of Skywalker where it's like, okay, we're back to the J.J. Abrams story now. And it just, that's what tainted the Disney Star Wars is The Last Jedi. And that's what
Is that the one in the middle?
Yeah, with Luke drinking the blue milk.
Yeah, I don't remember. I honestly don't remember a single thing from number whatever that one is and The Rise of Sky. I don't remember anything from The Rise of Skywalker except for their little fight and her force healing. And then I don't remember anything from the middle one.
Rise of Skywalker is actually good, but again, there's no context, and they wasted the middle movie and didn't get enough context and story into The Rise of Skywalker. But I think that's what they're doing now on the TV show side, is they're trying to build up that context, and they're trying to make it all leads back to the Mortis gods also. And they're bringing Beloth, who is like, I think she's the mother, or it's a whole thing, but they're obviously bringing it into a concise story, and people just need to relax and see what they're doing and stop worrying about them having gay people in the show. Like, who gives a shit? Are not all the characters being white dudes? Like, is it really that big of a deal?
There's a goddamn full galaxy of how many different alien species?
Yeah.
And they care about if they can bang other people or not. Who cares?
Yeah. That's the people who are, it's woke. Blah, blah, blah.
We'll definitely talk about the Mortis gods. I have to watch that 3 episode arc. I'll watch that one before the next episode.
You need to watch the one I told you in season 6 with Yoda, which is more even like deeper force entities than the Mortis gods, but it's important. And then the Mortis ones, it's another like 3 episode arc where Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka go to another like plane of existence and meet the Mortis gods. And Sam Witwer is the son.
He's everything. He's the dark son with the red eyes and shit. Kratos. Looks like Kratos. Who
almost comes into the galaxy, and if he did, he would have fucking killed Sidious like he was nothing. He would have just been like,
I don't know. Lucas says that Sidious is the most powerful Sith out there, no matter what.
Well, see, that's the thing, is the son isn't a Sith. He transcends, like, he's beyond the Mortis gods.
Yeah, because the Sith are just a people.
They're just a religious order, yeah.
Yeah.
But that makes Anakin even more important and makes him even more of the balance and the chosen one. So it's really good. I like it. There's a whole,
I'll have to watch the Mortis God ones and the one you just talked about.
Yeah.
I'll do that before we record again.
I need to research a lot of this too.
Fucking cat just fucking neighborhood socks just rolled through.
Socks?
Yeah, white paws.
You're scaring it off? Why not?
I don't want it in my garage.
Just say heck yeah and pet it.
That thing's mangy.